Hello, I'm Eva and welcome back to my podcast for learners of business English. This podcast is called Biznesowo po angielsku and it is where we explore global issues and learn the English you really need at work. I am returning with this episode after a longest summer break. October, guys, is still really lovely with plenty of warm sunshine. However, we've also had a few back-to-back days of cold gales already. I really hope the weather is just as nice where you live and that you are making the most of it before the autumn rain and cold arrive. Well, speaking again about this episode, I felt prompted to explore two powerful forces that continue to shape our world: artificial intelligence and fake news. These are two crucial topics and ones that come up in our conversations very frequently these days. So with this episode, I want to give you the tools to talk about them in English. I'd also like to remind you that this episode has full English subtitles on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, all platforms where you can access the Biznesowo po angielsku podcast. So you can switch them on if you want to read while listening. This episode, my dear listeners, is not only listening practice, but also a chance to pick up different bits of vocabulary, which you can reuse later. My hope is that you will gain much more confidence and also a better understanding of how words and expressions work in context to make use of them and convert into your conversations. Actually, there have already been many occasions when I brought up these topics in my business English lessons and my students commented on them very vividly. But I'm sure that after this episode, we will be coming back to them again to reinforce the vocabulary even more. There is just one thing. Please bear in mind that I'm speaking about AI and fake news from the perspective of a layperson. This means I'm not going to provide you with expert knowledge about the two topics. Instead, I want to show you how to talk about them in English in a kind of way you might use in a meeting or casual conversation. I am assuming that many of you, unless you are experts, scientists, or specialists, of course, will be discussing these topics from the same perspective. And that's perfectly fine. You don't need to be an expert to talk about AI or fake news. But undoubtedly, you do need the right language tools, don't you? In a nutshell, we'll start off with AI, from its definition to how it developed, and then we'll consider how it is changing our world, business, and society. Then, in the second part, we'll focus on fake news, why disinformation is a rising tide today, why it spreads so quickly across the world, what risks it creates for companies, but also what can be effective ways to combat this problem. And, importantly, what language you can use to talk about it in a business context. Okay, good listeners. Please get comfy, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and let's dive straight into the hot topics that spark so many conversations these days. Are you ready? Let's do it! So, what is artificial intelligence, or AI for short? AI, as we all know, is rapidly emerging as the most powerful technology since the invention of the computer and is set to bring profound changes. At its simplest, AI refers to computer systems that can perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, understanding language, recognizing images, making decisions, or even creating content. It's often described as a semblance of intelligence. Machines don't truly think like us, but they can emulate human learning through deep learning mechanisms. In layman's terms, they are trained to recognize patterns and respond in ways that sound human. A good example, one you've probably heard about, is ChatGPT, a language model that responds to a prompt by generating text that seems to comprehend context. Sometimes its answers are plausible-sounding, even when they are not fully accurate, which shows both the power and the risk of such tools. Now, a little history, dear listeners, if I may. AI has been called a long-promised future. Researchers have been working on it for decades, but for many years, progress was pretty slow. Then, around 2022 and 2023, something rapidly changed. Generative AI tools like ChatGPT, Midjourney, and others were described as groundbreaking, and there is no denying they took the world by storm. Suddenly, millions of people were using them in their daily work. Businesses quickly realized that AI was a game changer that could give them the edge over competitors. And here, guys, let's talk about the positive aspects first. For companies, AI means efficiency, automating repetitive tasks, analyzing massive amounts of data, predicting customer behavior, and even creating personalized marketing campaigns. For individuals, it can mean greater productivity. Imagine having a digital assistant available 24/7, helping you write, translate, or even brainstorm new ideas. AI can also drive economic growth, support innovation, and even upend traditional industries. But of course, every coin has two sides. There are also risks and challenges. One of the biggest concerns is the impact on jobs. If machines can draft contracts, analyze reports, or even diagnose diseases, what does that mean for human workers and for our future livelihoods? I bet many of you have already asked yourselves whether AI could pose a threat in this field. And yes, the truth is we constantly have to weigh up the advantages of artificial intelligence against the personal, social, and economic costs of the technologies that are now part of our everyday lives. Another concern is ethics. Biased algorithms can lead to unfair decisions, and a lack of transparency can reduce trust. Some say that relying too much on AI is like playing with fire. Well, yes, but where is this border then? Where is the dangerous point at which we actually overstep the mark? And now, on top of that, there is security. Namely, AI can generate realistic fake images, voices, or text, the so-called deepfakes. These can be used to distort the facts, undermine trust in public institutions, or even fuel hostile narratives. It strikes me that what we are dealing with here is truly a double-edged sword. On the one hand, AI offers productivity and progress. On the other, however, it can be used to violate our privacy or spread falsehoods that can cause major disruptions in societies. So yes, we can point out that AI has brought us incredible benefits, but at what costs? Before we move forward, let me stress one more point. AI is definitely not going away. It will continue to evolve, and it will reshape the future of our economies, our jobs, and even our politics. The challenge for us as humans and professionals is not to resist it, obviously, but to learn how to use it responsibly. Otherwise, we risk going too far down the rabbit hole. However, I want to share one quick and maybe optimistic digression. If we look back in history, our civilization once went through a massive industrial revolution in the 19th century. At that time, many people were afraid of the modern technologies of their day, machines, factories, steam engines. And yet, in the long run, those innovations transformed our world for the better, didn't they? So let's hope that with AI, despite all the risks, the outcome will be just as positive. As I am wrapping up this part on AI, I genuinely hope that human intelligence will continue to be valued and respected. You know, when I think about a future where many of our jobs could be performed by AI, where we might hang AI-generated paintings on our walls, read books written by AI, and listen to music composed by AI, it feels like an absurd vision, doesn't it? So I am thinking, if machines do everything for us, work for us, think for us, create for us, or even feel for us, would we still have a chance to survive as humans? Would we still grow, learn, and make mistakes the way we always have? Well, what do you think, listeners? Do you see this as a sort of an exciting possibility, or rather a worrying scenario for our future? Now, dear listeners, in this part I'll be breaking down some of the key vocabulary related to AI, just to help you understand all the words and expressions more clearly. And by the way, I should mention that this episode ended up being a bit longer than I'd expected, so for technical reasons I've decided to split it into two separate parts. In this one, we will focus entirely on artificial intelligence, and the next episode will continue the discussion about fake news. So stick around and let's explore some nice bits and pieces of language together. Ready? Let's do it! One, in a nutshell. This means very briefly or in a few words. You use it when you want to summarize something or give a quick conclusion without going into details. It's perfect for business meetings, presentations, or everyday conversations when you need to provide a short summary of something longer. 2. Plausible-sounding. If something sounds plausible, it sounds reasonable, believable, or realistic. Something you could easily accept as true. So when we say plausible sounding, we are focusing on how something sounds to the listener. It doesn't automatically mean it is false. It just means that it appears believable whether or not it actually is. For example, in business, you might hear a plausible sounding explanation for why a project was delayed. Maybe due to supplier issues or technical problems. That could be completely true. But the same phrase can also be used when you're a bit skeptical, when the story sounds convincing but you're not entirely sure you believe it. So, plausible sounding simply means it sounds true enough to believe. What matters is not the truth itself, but how credible it appears to the listener. 3. Give somebody the edge over somebody. To give somebody the edge over somebody means to give them an advantage in competitive situation. For example, her excellent English gives her the edge over other candidates. Or, Using AI tools can give companies the edge over their competitors. 4. Append something. When you hear the verb append, think about completely changing or disrupting something, almost like turning it upside down. For example, remote work has appended traditional office culture. It just means things have changed a lot, and whether that's good or bad depends on your perspective. So the word append can carry both positive and negative meanings. It really depends on the context, and it's quite flexible, and you need to read the tone from the situations. 5. Weigh up. This means to carefully consider the pros and cons before making a final decision. We can imagine putting the positives and negatives on a scale. For instance, we need to weigh up the risks before investing in this project. Or, she's weighing up her options before accepting the job offer. So, it's a really practical phrase, especially in business contexts where decisions usually need careful consideration. 6. Overstep the mark. This one means going too far, doing something that's completely unacceptable or inappropriate. For example, the journalist overstepped the mark by violating the politician's privacy. Or you could use it politely. I don't want to overstep the mark, but may I suggest an alternative? It's a nice way to signal boundaries in English. 7. Double-edged sword. I really like this one because it's very visual. A double-edged sword is something that has both positive and negative effects. It can help you, but it can also hurt you. For example, technology is a double-edged sword in business. On the one hand, it makes communication faster and decisions more data-driven. But on the other hand, it increases the risk of cyber attacks or information overload. Or take social media. It's a double-edged sword for brands. It helps companies build a community and connect with customers, but one negative post can go viral and damage the company's reputation instantly. So, whenever you use double-edged sword, think of something that's really powerful, but not always in a good way. Alright, my dear listeners, that's all for today's episode. I hope this discussion about AI gave you not only some useful vocabulary, but also a chance to reflect a little on how artificial intelligence is shaping our world, in business, in technology, and in our everyday lives. Also, don't forget that this episode actually comes in 2 parts. So in the next episode, I'll be talking about fake news and disinformation. Well, another fascinating and quite alarming topic that connects closely to what we discussed today. So make sure to tune in to the next one as well. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. It's always such a pleasure to read your messages and comments and to know that you find this podcast educational. And just a quick reminder, apart from creating this podcast, I also teach English on a daily basis. My students based in different parts of Poland and abroad study with me online. So if you'd like to improve your business English in a practical way, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for listening to Biznesowo po angielsku. If you found this episode useful, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend or a colleague, and leave a comment to let me know what you think. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep learning. Goodbye.